Hi, hello, howdy, and hey, welcome back. I'm so sorry I missed last week, but it was my birthday, so I wanted to take a weekend off to just kind of chill. And that's exactly what I did. Like, completely chilled out for the whole weekend. We did go out to eat, but other than that, I was like hanging out in my jammies, just hanging with the family. Um, so thank you guys so much for coming back. I appreciate you very much. You have no idea. Today I'm going to be doing two different videos, partly because I did miss the one last week. But the two sets of people that I want to talk about, it's going to be way too long for one video, so I'm going to split it up into two. So don't freak out if you see me in the same clothes, same outfit, and same crazy hairdo as I've got right now, because I'm going to go ahead and do both of them today. All right, now, as a disclaimer, every single week I try to make sure that everybody understands I am not a licensed or certified psychiatrist, psychologist, or therapist. I am, however, a life coach, and a lot of my opinions are based on a lifetime of experience. I did just turn 52 years old. And also a lot of studying, a lot of research, paying attention to other people, and obviously lots of my own therapy. So anyway, these are just sort of my insights and my thoughts on a lot of the time, like relationships and the people that we encounter in these relationships. And this is obviously dedicated to Valentine's Day. Thanks for the fun heart and rose wreath back there. Another disclaimer that I do want to put in here is I really, really hope that everybody understands that when encountering some of these people, if there's been any trauma, drama, anything like that, if you recognize yourself as one of these people, please, please, please seek out a therapist. If any of this is triggering, turn it off, go talk to somebody about it. Like I did, and like so many of the others that I talk about on my videos, it's imperative that you have some sort of psychological assistance when it comes to a lot of dealing with other people and anything that has caused you any kind of trauma in your life. All right, this one's not going to be as long because there's so much that I want to get into a little deeper. Master Fluffy Boots has come to visit. Yes. He doesn't always understand when I'm doing videos, and so occasionally he'll try to crawl across my desk thinking that I've got treats for him. So today's video is going to be about the royal farce and two characters, obviously, that are at the head of royalty. And that would be the king and queen. Now, I call them the tyrants because these guys are the ones who are well aware that they have the ultimate power, okay? And basically what they do is they say, look, it's either my way or the highway. They typically are not very generous when it comes to compromise within a relationship. Sometimes they will give a little, but most of the time you have to move a whole lot more in their direction. Now, these people are made up of narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, and there's a lot to unpack with those three things. So I'm not going to go into the narcissistic and breakdown, because that's going to be probably over the course of several videos. And sociopathy and psychopathy are also ones that will need to be talked about a little bit more in depth later. Some of the things that you'll find about these people: they are incredibly controlling, they are manipulative, and can be extraordinarily abusive. When I talk about abuse here, I want you to keep in mind that the definition of abuse basically means that somebody's harming you in a way. Now, some of these people can be physical abusers, but the majority of them are not. But they are people who are emotional abusers, financial abusers, mental abusers, and people that just, they work very hard to bring themselves up, and in the process they have no problem stepping on the people beneath them, and they will do whatever it takes to get to where they are as the tyrant or the king or the queen in the royal farce. Okay, so these people are the ones that are also very, very charming. And it's very easy to fall for them. Many of them are also pathological liars. They are people that have no problem pretending to be something that they're not, just to hook you and reel you in. And sadly, I've had entirely too many of these kinds of people in my life. So here's the thing. If we talk about things maybe that are genetic, you know, sometimes genetic things can create this type of personality disorder. Most of the time, though, what we find is that these people are created. What my problem was is I would see these people, but I would also see what I like to call that child within, who had been hurt or damaged by someone else, and it caused them to adapt coping mechanisms that lead them to this type of behavior. And I say that too because while I'm doing the royal farce, I want you to understand that I also recognize a lot of these characters in myself throughout my process, throughout my life. And sometimes it's really earth-shattering when you realize that you're one of these. It's pretty negative when you take a look at it. So we had kind of a minor emergency. The whole setup just kind of fell, and then onto more stuff. So I apologize that we're trying to do this, and that just, woo, that totally fell over. And so I think we've got it. I think we're set up again better, and hopefully we'll have no more crazy interruptions. I have only been on doing this for just a couple of minutes, but we've been rolling the whole time with all of the chaos with the cat and everything. So, all right. Now, so I think I left off talking about like how these behaviors can become very learned. These can be learned by others who are this way, that show narcissistic tendencies or sociopathic tendencies, that type of thing. But a lot of the times, I think that people who feel the need to have total control over things are pretty much people who feel like their life is out of control. I'll give you an example. I know that a lot of people in my generation, you know, we had to deal with parents that had split up. You know, we've talked a little bit about that. We've had to learn how to do things as an adult way too early, and just little bits and pieces of our childhood were kind of chipped away because a lot of responsibility sometimes was forced on us. And that was something that we had no control over as children. You know, we didn't have control over the fact that our parents were fighting, or that maybe they were getting a divorce or something like that. We didn't have that kind of control. And as things continued to spin out of control, and maybe our parents were meeting people and they were remarrying, or they were, out exploring, what it's like to be single, a lot of us kind of got stuck in the middle. So when you're dealing with that, so many of us in this particular generation, and I would say even, maybe 10 years either way, we were kind of the pioneers of this type of situation. And I think that's one of the reasons why you find more and more of the people who have narcissistic sociopathic tendencies, is because as children we were thrust into responsibilities, and a lot of the times we felt out of control. We weren't able to control the fact that I had to go to my mom's and I had to go to my dad's, and then it was going back and forth. I myself had to become two different people, and I recognized that very, very, very clearly, that I was pretty much my normal self when I was at my mom's. I lived at my mom's all the time, but I had to become a completely different person when I went and stayed at my dad's. And then I was becoming, a different person to please my dad. And there's going to be a whole lot more of this that we're definitely going to dig into, because we have daddy and mommy issues a lot too, thanks to all of this stuff. So again, I think that we become very controlling. Now I'll give you an example of this that someone I knew did. And they were living with someone, and they had a very specific way that they liked to have their clothes folded. And so when this other person was trying to help out with things, the other person, the controlling person, would get really upset if the clothes weren't folded exactly the way that they wanted them. I think a lot of us can recognize some of this as well. So when you get to a point where you're harping on someone because they're not doing what you want them to do, here's something that happens. If they don't do it, you get frustrated if they're doing it wrong. So maybe they don't do it. You have to take on that responsibility. So your controlling behavior can be very detrimental to distributing jobs throughout the house and getting help for yourself. So you're putting more work on yourself, and you're creating a tense environment. So this is something, I'm not kidding. I've seen this in a lot of people, and I'll be perfectly honest, I did see this in me when it came to a lot of different things. But life was crazy growing up, and we all have to find coping mechanisms. And in a way, I had to learn how to take care of myself and to help with my mom, because sometimes she was working two jobs. So I had to learn how to clean up the house. I had to learn how to do some cooking. And a lot of it wasn't even something that she was putting on me, but it was something that I was choosing to do for a bunch of reasons. Okay. So we develop some of these controlling behaviors because we feel like so much of it's out of control. My cleaning and cooking and doing a lot of things to help out my mom was a coping mechanism for me to have a little bit of control over my life. I mean, I was 8 years old, 10 years old. I was learning how to cook meals, that type of thing. And it wasn't even that she had asked me to do it, but it was something that I felt like I needed to do to help her out. So there's that whole knight in shining armor business too. Yeah. A lot of these fade into each other. The problem with the tyrant, however, is they lack the ability to compromise. And it is not until they are ready to change. They won't change. There's no way that you can have them change. You can't instigate change. And here's the worst part of the story. After the split 8.5 years ago, I spent a lot of time doing some research, looking into his personality type and some of the things of like why he did the way that he did is part of my healing as well. And I was reading something about people who try to help people who think that they can do something to help this person change. And that was what I wanted, was to help him change, to become better, to feel better about who he was, because he was unraveling in a lot of different ways. And it was at that point that they said, if you believe that you are powerful enough to make somebody else change, that makes you a narcissist as well. I cried a lot when I read that, because nobody wants to hear that label be put on you. And I thought, here I was, a victim of so many different things. How could I possibly fall into the narcissistic world? It's those of us who have felt so out of control that we begin to have more and more controlling tendencies in order to maintain some semblance of control over chaos. And the chaos is not necessarily external chaos. It could be, maybe it's internal chaos. Regardless, this is a tough one to be able to swallow and go, okay, so maybe I can be a little bit controlling, but why? And that may be the question that we ask ourselves. Now, I think that the controlling goes with a lot of us, okay? And I think that when we understand that, we begin to see it, then maybe we can start to change some of our behavior patterns, things like that. Now, where we really get into the tyrant aspect is when people become very manipulative, very hurtful, when the gaslighting is going on, so that you're belittling other people. Now, having a controlling nature in how you fold your towels, or how you fold your clothes, or how you put things away in the dishwasher, that's a little bit different. You can, that typically is not going to be manipulative. Sometimes you might yell and scream and stuff like that and make them feel dumb for not doing it the way that you want it, even if you've showed them 100 times, something like that. But I think that when it really becomes excessively abusive with the manipulation, the gaslighting, and all of these other code words that we have right now for really bad abusive behavior, that's the things that we can get into later in more detail. But the reason why I wanted to bring these guys up is because I believe, just like all of the rest of us who were raised in a world of princes and princesses and being saved and the knights in shining armor, and wanting to be these figures that we see on TV and that we read in books. But I think a whole lot of that stems from our childhood. All right, now, the other thing that we have here is that it doesn't matter how amazing your home life could have been. Let's say that you had like the perfect life. Your parents were great. They got along. They loved each other very much. You went through school. You got decent grades. You weren't one of the bad kids. But it doesn't matter how good or amazing anything is. Bullies are everywhere. Dealing with bullies is a nightmare. And that is definitely something that when we start to look at the tyrants, we understand a little bit more. There may be a lot of people that want to be a bully. Why? Why would somebody want to be a bully? Is it because they're being abused at home? A lot of the times it is. If they feel like they have no control over their life at home, then the only semblance of control that they can have, unlike me who took on cooking and cleaning and taking care of things by the age of 10, basically, of taking on responsibilities, you have others who exact their control tendencies or their controlling tendencies to the people around them. And a lot of times you see that is in schools. There's always bullies in schools, and they're mean and they're horrible and sometimes violent. But pretty much every single time I've ever sat and really looked at the bully, I realized there was something else there. And that was somebody who felt very out of control because of things maybe at home. There's always going to be a bully everywhere you go. So you have to learn how to deal with them. We will definitely talk more about those as well. How do we get to be this way? Again, like I said, sometimes broken homes, feeling out of control. I found another one that is interesting as well, is someone who has been completely and totally overindulged. When we grew up and we had kids, and some of us became single parents, what we wanted to do was the complete opposite of what had happened to us. Again, this is a controlling thing, because if our parents couldn't provide for us, then I was going to work very hard to provide for my son, and then also my daughter. And so thus we created the millennial generation who's very entitled. And that I recognize as my own folly. Anyway, that's overindulgence, I think, can create those narcissists. People who watch other bullies gain power are also those who become bullies later. And with that may mean that they come from a physically, mentally, emotionally abusive family. But even if it's not that, sometimes they go to school, and if they are a person who's kind of inside of themselves and they watch these bullies take control, sometimes they gravitate towards those bullies, take on some of those personality traits, take on some of the behavior patterns, and they just continue to grow doing that, because manipulating and controlling people puts you in a position of power, whereas being nice all the time doesn't really do the job. So I think sometimes these bullies, these tyrants, are created by just watching these other people take control. They have power. And a lot of times the people that are watching this don't understand that the bully themselves are the ones who are truly out of control, and they're doing anything and everything they can to control their environment. Now, I said before that I see myself in all of these characters that I bring up in the Royal Farce. But I do know that there were times when I felt like life was so completely out of control that the only thing that I could do was control that tiny little piece of the world that I lived in. And that has definitely been a journey that I've grown from. So even if you do see yourself in some of this, there is help out there. There's always help out there. And like I said before, I really do believe that all of us have some of these traits, and that's okay. It really is, because we can get help. There is help out there now. And we can allow the feeling of not being in control. We can let go of our terrified grip on anything and everything that we try to control. If we just tap in to why we do that, and how can we heal from the things that brought us to that point in life. There's a difference between controlling things and being a bully, being a tyrant. or being a leader when you are using that control. Here's the challenge. I want you to take a really good few minutes and a hardcore, honest look at your life and think about a time when maybe you were a tyrant. You know, whether it was intentional or not. You know, whether it was, oh my God, you are not folding these clothes the way that I want them done. Or, you know, you're supposed to use this side of the sink for this, and you put the dishes in the dishwasher this way. And if you don't, then I'm going to yell and scream at you. Instead of appreciating the fact that someone actually did it to begin with. That's the challenge, is to think about when something like that may have happened in your life, when that may have occurred. Why do you think you did that? And did you learn from it? How did it make you feel? Address maybe some of those thoughts, and definitely talk it over with your therapist. Because, again, a controlling behavior is not always a bad thing. It can lead to leadership skills, but you don't want to be a tyrant. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We do want to continue to get these messages out to as many people as possible. And I guess, if you give me a few minutes, I'll see you next time.
This is ending up as 56 minutes.
Well, a whole lot of that was the start. And the several interruptions.
Oh my gosh. It will be fine.
Kind of go from there. Uh-oh, I have a visitor. Come on, come on. Oh, okay. All right, where did he go?
Under the table.
Oh, there he is. Somebody. Help! Jesus.
What's that?
Everything.
I'm gonna pause it. No, I'm just gonna keep this in because it's funny.
Oh my God.
And we're moving it. Technical difficulties.
This is gonna be fun to edit.
Zoom out for me, please. No. Oh, whoa. Hey.